Well, as Ken said, Anand, you do many things, and one of the things you do involves a company called Findability.
Yes.
Findability, and I wonder if you can tell us a little more about that, because you've been involved in a number of different ways of using Watson power, Watson technology for insights. But this is one of the most interesting because it focuses on the nonprofit sector. Not what we normally think of as an application for this, but you've seen something here. In particular, you have something called the Impact Measurement and Analysis Solution. What's all this about?
Thank you for having me on this panel, and listening from Ginny to Dr. Bakshi to Steve's panel, I was trying to recollect my journey of what is findability sciences and what we did with Watson. But I think we are a true representative of what all the speakers prior to this spoke. I started this journey in 2010, and as you can imagine, findability is not an English word. We actually coined it. It's ability to find information, and we trademarked and we patented and we own the concept of ability to find information. Nobody was talking about big data in 2010, and it's such a rapid journey of last 5 years. And the dream that time was that how can we help organizations to find the data. I started solo. In 5 years now, we are about 100 plus people company all across the globe. We are present in India, Europe, and United States. But when we started, the first problem I had was that I need search algorithm in the platform, and I was not able to build on my own because it was just a couple of people doing this work. So I ran to the world's best IT company, IBM. And that time, they had just acquired ViviZimo, which is now a Watson Explorer. So we were probably one of the first partners started using ViviZimo into our platform and started rolling the service. And it was a great success. Means taking that search engine into our platform was a great decision. Subsequently, some of the co-IBMers, they came and said, okay, we are now coming with a new technology called Big Insight. And this is really a big data technology using Hadoop. And we said, no, we don't want, we're very happy with Watson Explorer and et cetera. But that was another decision we took in our journey in late 2011, 2012. We were one of the first partners to use Big Insight in our platform, added dot onto it. And that really helped us, and we changed our signature line to pain of search versus joy of finding. Okay, and we started giving people really joy of finding with combination of ViviZimo, erstwhile ViviZimo, the Data Explorer, and Big Insight. And we were participating in 2014 in IBM Insight, and Manoj Saxena, the then general manager of Watson, made an appeal to all the partners saying that, okay, we are starting this ecosystem concept. People come with ideas. And we saw a mad rush of all the partners going with healthcare, financial services, retail, low-hanging fruit. These are the largest revenue makers in the industry. But I sat with my team, and we said, no, we need to go to IBM with an example which is totally outside the traditional IT people run to. And what can that be? We thought, and we said, IBM probably may not like this idea about serving non-profit, right? Because they don't pay, there's not much of money. But the statistics is that the not-for-profit industry is a $2 trillion industry. Every year, $2 trillion go into the world in doing good. And that's the industry which is really underserved from technology angle. Because what they have done probably is best now so far is just they can record your donations, they can electronically send grant reports. That's the highest technology automation done. So he said, can Watson solve the problem? And I had a fortune to attend Ginny's session when the Watson headquarters was inaugurated. And Ginny really used a sentence saying that Watson can solve the problems which generations could not solve. And we said, can we take this sentence and run with it, that the generations couldn't solve the problem of nonprofit? Take just two gentlemen on this earth, Bill Gates and Bill Clinton. Both of them spend about $20 billion in the world every year in trying to do good for humanity. But what technology they have? So cutting a long story short, we said, one of the measurement they want is measuring the impact of this $20 billion going into the field and $2 trillion spent worldwide. So if somebody gives $500 million for India to eradicate malaria or reduce infection from malaria, how do they measure? They have no means of measuring it. They spend 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and at the end of 10 years, they look back and they say, oh, out of $500 million, $200 went west, and it's a true story. Because most of the time we say it's malaria, it's mosquitoes, let's send the mosquito nets to the people. And most of the time those mosquito nets are either used as a fishing nets, or they're used as beds, or they're just lying in somewhere in the corner. They don't get used. So we said, can we feed Watson all these narratives of what's happening in the world, the grant reports, the proposals, the news, and then let's ask Watson, what happened to the $500 million I spent, or where I should spend the money? And the results were phenomenal. So now, where the return on investment cannot be measured in numbers, with use of Watson, we started using Watson to measure the return on investment, which is hidden into all the text narratives.
Something fundamentally new for
Absolutely.
people who are giving away money. You have said, I know, that Watson is an innovation of historic scale, historic nature. What do you see as the impact of cognitive technologies, not only to your business, but to society overall? And then the second question on that is, why have you chosen to work with IBM on this vision that you have?
When I say that it's a historic nature, it is really true. It's almost 2 years we work with IBM Watson. We are one of the first 5 partners. When I say that it's a historic nature, the problem, as I mentioned, is non-profit is taken. And we launched, as you said, many applications on Watson, and I'll be glad to share with some of those examples. But first historic proportion is that the speed of deployment. A startup company like us, in 2014, we just hear from Manoj Saxena in his keynote address that there's a Watson ecosystem launched. We run to it, we take this concept, and we develop application in 2 weeks. In my 20 years of IT career, no application was built in 2 weeks. Okay, I left my job, a very cushy corporate job, because I was deploying $7 million data warehousing solution, and my customer was still not finding what they want. Whereas with Watson, by ingesting 1,000 pages, we created a quick proof of concept, and we started running to customers. This is historic. This was not possible for IT people like us. We were coding, we were spending years and nights and doing this programming, and then showing customer at the end of 3 years some results. Now I can show in 2 years, 2 weeks. Why we chose Watson? Because as I said, we use big data technologies from IBM, and as Ginny said, the progression of IBM, like focusing on big data, bringing cloud, and bringing Watson, was a natural journey for us as a partner. We use big data technology. Sandy is going to talk about the cloud, but that was one of the biggest thing in our progress. Why we could progress? Because I don't need now servers, I don't need network people, don't need anybody. So we use cloud, and then Watson was a natural extension where I can add natural language capability and solve some of the problems which were never solved.
Ken, I want to ask you a similar question, to ask you to think big. What do you see as the long-term impact of Watson and cognitive technology?
No, it's a very good question. Look, you can tell we think this is a real game changer. Yeah. And I suspect when they write the history of the last 100 years in technology, they'll write about the transistor, the internet, and cognitive, not necessarily in that order. Cognitive truly is augmenting human intelligence. It's not just because it helps us answer a question, but maybe more importantly, helps us figure out what the right question is to ask, and how to find the right next action to take from the information that it's able to ingest. We talked about why now for this, and it is because of this information explosion, but it's more than just the sheer volume of data. I think it's the fact that this data is unstructured. The dark part of the data is not that it's evil, it's just you can't get at it. It's voice, it's video, it's image. It just doesn't neatly fit in rows and columns in a spreadsheet or a database. So, today's tools just can't extract anything out of it. It just sits there unusable. The ability now to extract insight from this is just going to open up a huge amount of opportunity for features, for products, but I think for fundamental problems that society faces and for opportunities that society faces. You can tell we're very excited about this. This comes around once in a generation.
Right. Actually, that last observation ties into something that Anand is working on, which is education. another huge issue, possibly unexpected for people thinking about applications here, but you're doing this work as part of findability. Tell us what you're doing and why.
So what happened, Jeff, is as I mentioned, we launched in nonprofit, and we saw one of the largest sector in the United States is the students which leave the education institutes. They always look back at education institute, contribute to it, and try to grow. But we started finding some very, very interesting problems. I don't know anybody in this audience knows, but in the United States, everybody says that the education prices are going up, it's becoming very expensive. We found, we work with at least a dozen universities in the United States, and they cannot disburse the scholarships every year because they cannot find the right match, the right students. And they're lying it on their balance sheets. The money is there in the bank. But somebody has given endowment and they have specified very, very specific thing. The student should be from this area, should have these types of majors, this type of parents, this type of ancestry. And there's no time because it's in 3 months they need to finish admission process, get students into the classes and go. And it's a very small niche problem, but it's a huge problem that can solve reducing the cost of education in the United States. Then you lead, as Ginny said and some other speakers, that you can customize now education per student. So what we said that incoming, existing, and outgoing students, how can we change their experience with the education? Not only just about the course content and the content which are very common applications, but we are taking this very interesting, very specific. Like in India, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, IIT Bombay, which is one of the most marquee organizations, has started working about the past students with us. Because most of the alums in this country, they leave and they go abroad from these markets, and they can't find them. So we're trying to solve their findability problem, and then now going to have Watson come and help us in solving some of these critical issues.
Ken, based on what you've heard here, I want to ask you about India, because you have suggested already that this technology can apply to an enormous range of industries. Anand has talked about what it's doing with nonprofit, with education and so forth. When you look at India, what industries strike you as ripe for cognitive innovation?
Boy. Well, look, in many ways, I think many of the applications in the rest of the world will apply here in India. But with probably one big difference, and that is just the massive scale of operations here in India. And I think that's both a challenge because scale comes with complexity, or complexity comes with scale. But also comes with a big opportunity because it's the scale player, the big scale player gets an advantage and can leapfrog, as I think was referred to before. You know, if I think about, Ginny mentioned a few that will happen here. If I would to add on those quickly, transportation. You know, it takes a long time to get through Bangalore, as if you haven't noticed. But you know, when you add connected cars, traffic cameras, smart highways, and if you can harness that data with cognitive systems, you don't have to extrapolate that far in the future to imagine the ability to manage traffic flow and to manage pollution that's resulting from traffic flow. And pollution is probably another application. Jenny mentioned work that we're doing in Delhi. It's a project we call Green Horizons, which we've been very involved in other countries, China being one, where we look at correlations with cognitive systems between traffic patterns, weather, industrial locations and output, and predict and look at the linkages between those and how they affect pollution. And by changing some of the input parameters, you can actually shape the rate of pollution and have a real impact on people's lives. And maybe the third, which we talked a lot about, of course, is healthcare. And you know, we talked about oncology. I think the number is Watson is a resident doctor in 14 of the leading oncology institutions around the world. It is both learning and helping the doctors. And as we talked about, that learning is an incredible resource for humanity because we can take the best institutions in the learnings and export that to every rural area of India, every major metropolitan area of India, and in the world. So I think those three give me a lot of excitement, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, Anand, same basic question. Other uses for cognitive technology, not in theory, but in practice. What are you doing next?
So, Jeff, it's so interesting that every day our team members in the morning come back with one application, new application, and as everybody suggested, we want to focus, we want to make sure we yield results, and we're very happy that we are one of the ecosystem partners who actually have real customers for Watson. Their reference cases, in fact, customers allowed us to use their names, which talks a lot about how this technology is feasible and can develop new applications. But before I answer you, and I would like to share with you a new application which I'm sure the audience is going to like. I'm going to roll a video. But prior to that, just to piggyback on what you were saying about what can be solved in India. If we poll this audience, how many of you had a problem when you ordered Domino's pizza at your home and it didn't get delivered, or the guy calls you a number of times, or when Flipkart or Amazon shipped you something and it didn't get delivered and went back? Anybody can raise hand, how many of you experienced? Okay, so close to 100%. The serious problem, and even Manoj talked about that, how can we impact on humanity? So one of the new idea which will be soon launching is we are trying to convert the Indian addresses into digital. So it will be an IP address per home or per business. And that can solve the entire digital India problem. Like Ginny talked about, this society and this country is all about e-commerce now. Your magazine covered Amazon as a 1 trillion market for India. Just two weeks ago, Fortune magazine came with the cover note that it's a 1 trillion market for Amazon. But 30% of the deliveries don't happen in this country and the goods go back. But that's a different problem. We already launched now one application on Watson for democratizing knowledge of fashion. Okay, 7 billion people on the earth aspire to eat well and dress well. Whether they are rich, poor, living on the streets or living in mansions, they want to dress well. So what we thought is that if I have to go for this Watson event, how should I dress up? If I'm going for a Japanese wedding, how should I dress up? Everybody has questions, I know for sure. And statistically, it is proven that we use only 20% of our wardrobe because we are very comfortable with the same type of clothes. So we go repeatedly and we pick up those clothes and we just be comfortable. But we want to do something. So retailers really have a serious challenge because traditionally they used only two technologies, videos and pictures. They dressed up a model, they put a hoarding in Times Square and we saw it, we got motivated, the model is wearing yellow dress. We go to Macy's and we say it's red and red doesn't suit me. What should I do? I get lost and then I just buy something, come back, put it into wardrobe and I just go on to my comfort clothing. So we said that this is a very serious problem for retailers to connect and engage with the consumers. So can we do something? So can we roll the video, please? So unlike what you see here in video, this is actually a B2B platform. So as Manoj spoke, that this is actually solving on mainframe the problem for the retailers to connect with the consumers. So we have created an API which will go into the traditional retailers application and they can just provide the cognitive power. We are feeding all the blogs, all the fashion magazine content. So I can just ask, when should I tuck in my shirt? And Watson can tell me, because there are, I don't know how many of you know, but there are 13 types of tuck-ins, and when should you and when should you not. And if you ask Watson, yeah, Watson can tell you. And that's what is the excitement, because now brands can easily disperse the knowledge, democratize the knowledge, and increase their sale, because while I'm in that application asking natural language questions, getting answers, there is e-commerce connected to it where I can buy more.
And
Anand?
how do you say the name of this app?
Dapper do.
Dapper do.
And is there even hope for me, Anand?
Yes.
This sounds great. I mean, it's enormously engaging.
Yes, it is.
Ken, practical question. First of all, how would you advise companies, when you look at India, to take advantage of this huge cognitive opportunity, and specifically what resources are available so they can try this stuff out and get up and running?
Well, look, actually, the answer is simple, and it's good news, which is, I said it was an open platform, and it really is. It's available, it's easy to trial it, play around with it, but actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to cold call you, Anand. I mean, you've actually lived it, so why don't you give your response to that?
Yeah, I think I would probably echo what our previous speakers have spoken, is that start somewhere. And as you have heard, my journey is we started with non-profit, quote unquote boring business where consumers don't get excited, the investors like Manoj Saxena don't get interested. But we started there. Sorry, just speak. But we started there because it's a very, we want to start a journey, we wanted to learn cognitive technology, we wanted to see how the business applications come. And once that expertise come in, and I think what erstwhile Manoj launched this ecosystem, but Steve Gold and his team is phenomenal. I every time ask Steve that how have you recruited these great ecosystem managers? And he told me that training, they train. And what has happened is that we got practically free resources from IBM to collaborate with us, create applications, and take into the market, which a startup company like me would not have ever afforded to recruit. But IBM makes those resources available to us, and Steve Gold's team is fantastic ecosystem team. So sign up with the ecosystem, give them one application use case, start there, and your journey can really go where, I don't know in 5 years, but you can practically bake new solutions once you get a hang of how Watson works. So, and I think the opportunity for this room, this city, and this country is phenomenal to work with IBM. And I'm a living example, first generation entrepreneur, immigrant in America, having a dream of starting a business, and that I could do it only because of being partnered with IBM. Yeah, otherwise it was impossible.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Really fun discussion, really helpful. Anand, Ken, thanks so much.
Thank you.